Hey everyone, welcome. If you're even thinking about law school, you're in the right place. We're going to use this explainer to walk through the introduction of LSAT test prep mastery. Think of this as our first lesson together, breaking down this crucial first step so you can kick off your journey with total confidence. Let's get right into it.
Okay, right off the bat, this is the most important thing you need to get. The LSAT is not about what you know, it's all about how you think. Seriously. It's set up to be like a workout for the exact mental muscles a lawyer uses every day, picking apart arguments, finding hidden assumptions, and making a solid case. So mastering this test, it's not just a hoop to jump through. It's you building the skills you'll need for your entire legal career.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll get the lay of the land, the LSAT landscape. Then we're going to decode the test itself, piece by piece. After that, we'll talk about the score and why it's such a big deal. Then we'll map out how you can actually prepare for this thing. And finally, we'll get into some tips for making every single hour of study time really count.
All right, first up, the LSAT landscape. Before you can even think about beating the test, you've got to understand what it is and why it's this huge gateway standing between you and law school.
So what this really boils down to is that the LSAT is basically a test of your potential. Law schools use it to see if you have the core abilities you're going to need from day one. Like wading through dense legal documents, reasoning your way through messy situations, and just thinking clearly when you're under pressure.
Let's just hammer this point home because it's huge. You do not need to be a history buff or a science whiz. You don't need to memorize any specific facts. The test gives you every piece of information you need. Your only job is to figure out what to do with it. And that's exactly why law schools love it so much. It's a simulation of being a lawyer, where you're handed a new case file and you have to build an argument from scratch.
Okay, so now that we know what it is, let's look at how it's built. We're going to pull back the curtain on the modern LSAT format. I promise, once you see how it's put together, it becomes way less intimidating.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because this chart tells you exactly where your priorities should be. Starting in August 2024, logical reasoning makes up a whopping 2/3 of your entire score. Let me say that again. 2 of the 3 sections that count are logical reasoning. That tells you right away where a massive chunk of your prep time needs to go.
And this table gives you the full picture. You've got your 2 scored logical reasoning sections and your 1 scored reading comprehension. But check out that third row, the unscored section. This is the tricky part. It could be another logical reasoning section or it could be another reading comp, and you will have absolutely no idea which one is the experimental one while you're taking the test. That means you have to go all out on every single section. And then, of course, there's the writing sample. It's not scored, but it is mandatory, and you can bet that admissions committees do look at it.
And now for the part everybody is waiting for. The score. Let's talk about what these numbers actually mean and how they literally translate into open doors and opportunities. There it is, the LSAT scoring scale, running from a 120 to a perfect 180. The average score usually lands somewhere around a 150. And trust me, every single point you climb up that scale moves you into a higher percentile and can totally change the game for your applications. This chart really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? A 150 is about average. But once you start pushing into the 160s, a whole new tier of competitive schools opens up to you. And if you're aiming for those top-ranked programs, you're going to be shooting for the high 160s and into the 170s. Your score is a massive factor, and just a couple of extra points can be the difference between paying full price for tuition and getting a major scholarship offer. Okay, so we get the test, we know the score is a huge deal. The big question is, how do we get a great score? Let's move on to building your foundation for success. This is all about preparing strategically. Any really solid study plan is built on these 3 pillars. First, you've got to understand the test inside and out, which is exactly what we're doing right now. Second, you need to take a timed diagnostic test. You have to get an honest look at where you're starting from, your strengths and weaknesses. And third, you use all that info to build a smart, structured study plan with clear goals. This isn't about just doing random problems. It's about targeted, focused improvement.
Now, when it comes to resources, you've basically got 2 main paths. Prep courses are awesome for structure and expert guidance, but yeah, they can be pricey. On the other hand, study guides are way more affordable and let you go at your own pace, but you have to be incredibly self-disciplined. Honestly, the best choice here totally depends on how you learn, what your budget looks like, and what's going to keep you on track.
But here's the thing, no matter which path you take, this part is completely non-negotiable. The absolute gold standard, the most crucial tool you have is the library of official prep tests. These come straight from LSAT, the people who actually make the test. Nothing else will give you a more accurate feel for what you're going to face on test day. Taking these under timed conditions and then reviewing every single mistake, that is the fastest way to get better, period.
And that brings us to our final and maybe the most important section, making your study time as efficient as possible. Look, this isn't about who can study for the most hours. It's about making the hours you do have really count. Let's talk about how to work smarter, not harder.
All right, here's your final checklist for Smart Prep. Start reading dense, complicated stuff outside of your study books. It builds mental stamina. Sharpen your reasoning skills by breaking down arguments you see in the news or online. Practice your timing like your life depends on it. And please, don't forget the mental and physical side of this. Manage your stress, get enough sleep, eat well. A rested, resilient mind is your greatest weapon.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Prepping for the LSAT is so much more than just trying to get a good score. You are actively building the skills in critical thinking, and discipline, and perseverance that are going to serve you through all of law school and deep into your career. It's a true investment in the professional you're about to become.
And that's where we'll leave it. The habits you start building today are literally the foundation for your future. This whole process is a challenge, for sure, but it is 100% doable. The only real question left is the one right there on the screen. How are you going to begin your investment?